Hi and welcome to another video. I'll be repairing this Bush PB83 in this one. This set dates from about 1946. It's just a normal 3-wave band 5-valve super hat with push button tuning, and it's got manual tuning on 3-wave bands. I'm going to turn it around and we can have a look at the inside, and we'll just go through some of the things that I've noted that we'll need to fix as we work through the set. Right, here's the inside of the set with the back removed. Initial inspection shows there's a little bit of surface rust on the speaker here, which should come off nice and easily. There's a bit of surface rust here and some on the chassis where the air gets in, gets warmed up by the valves, and then condenses when the valves start to cool down again. It's got an IW4350 rectifier, EL33 output valve, an EBC33 here. I think this is a... And these valves, actually, these red ones, they all look pretty new to me. EBC33. So, this shouldn't be too hard a set to fix up again. The one thing that I did notice is this capacitor here, and it's bulging at the top. I don't know whether you can see that. The top, the rubber bit here is really quite bulged, so that's a pretty sure thing that's going to need to be replaced. There's a bit of cabinet work needs doing up in the corner here. It's a little bit loose, you can see it wobble, it just needs re-gluing a bit, and there's a bit of wood here split away where it's been badly handled, and that'll need to be glued back down again. But other than that, this should be relatively easy. A little bit of wiring I'm going to replace as well. That's actually not too bad, but there's a bit there. That's the speaker switch here. That'll need replacing. But as regarding removing the chassis, it's 2 screws up there to undo, and then there's an octal plug down there just behind the big rectifier valve, and that connects to the on-off tone switch here. So you just literally pull the octal plug out, disconnect the speakers, those 2 bolts. There'll be 4 bolts under the chassis here, and the chassis is pretty enormous, and it should all just come out, and obviously take the knobs off the front. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take some photos first just to make sure I connect these leads up the right way when it all goes back together again, etc, etc. And we'll have a look at the underside, and I can get this huge great cabinet off my workbench. Right, and here we go, it's the chassis out of the cabinet. Just a quick look at the empty cabinet. This one here was made on the 24th of June 1946. And it's number 683 or 1683. It's got first mechanical inspection 24th of June 46, and first electrical test 24th of June 1946. Huh. And there's the license plate that all British radios had, because Marconi owned a lot of the patents. And there's the speaker. Quite a lot of rust on the top. Try and preserve these water slide transfers here as much as I can. And there's the tone. Sorry, yes, that's the on-off switch and tone. and there's the little octally plug thing that plugs into the chassis. So obviously I'll need to either short this out and do any testing, or just plug it back in. So there's the cabinet, the maker's mark or something. And you'll remember in a previous video, radio waifs and strays, that I've already taken the chassis out and swept all the dust out before I bring it into the house. That was a couple of months back, or a month or so ago. Right, onto the chassis. Here's the chassis out of the cabinet. Let's just take a quick look at the Teleflick dial. This is like a shortwave logging dial come tuning indicator. The idea is obviously on shortwave the dial scale is not really long, so if you had a station come through then your best reception, and you'd log it and you'd use these numbers. Can you see I've got a torch shining into it? See the numbers there, and you watch as I turn the dial, you'll see light coming. You see, so there's two plates here, and one rotates in front of the other and lets a small amount of light through. So if your station, say your best reception was there, you'd sort of notice that it was 7.5. See, it's starting to close now on 7, but we'll have a better look when from the front of the set. But you can see how it moves around as I tune the dial. Quite a clever idea, actually. Yeah. Right, let's turn the torch off a minute and have a look at the underside of the chassis. I'll just put this down for a second. I'll turn it over. Right, here we go. It's coming from this side. Right, so these here are like your preset stations, so you tune these trimmers here for your selected station, and then the 3 ones here for medium, shortwave and longwave. This set has not had any replacements, it's never been worked on. Bush made use of these tag boards, and there's probably capacitors, well in fact I know there's capacitors over on the back side as well. This is the bottom transformer here. And one thing I forgot to point out when we had a look at its first look is that before I do anything on it, it's going to need a new mains cable, because this is all ripped and the insulators are exposed. You can see that, it's pretty nasty, and it's only, to be fair, this is only about 2 feet long, so it's good for nothing really. Now Bush made very good sets, all easy to maintain as far as this sort of age of technology went. Very well constructed. Lots of war surplus components in here I see as well, like this sort of thing. Very interesting. Oh, that's great. There's a capacitor up behind here as well. It's going to be fun to change. Oh, there's 2. And there's quite a lot up behind here. Let's get my torch and perhaps see some big ones. Right, wait for the camera to Yeah, some nice capacitors up there. This huge great resistor, which has obviously got a bit hot, but nothing else seems to have got hot. Right, I'm going to replace this main lead and see what the continuity is like to the on-off switch, etc, etc, and let's get started. I've got the service manual here. This is the proper Bush one. So we're ready to go. Let's just tip it up and have a look at the front. There's the dial scale. Two huge great bulbs. They're only 6.3 volts though. There's another look at the Teleflick dial there. Yeah. Looks a very nice set. But first things first, let's replace this mains lead first. Right, I've undone the P clip here on the mains lead, which is, you can see, it's just fallen to bits, and some of the insulation has fallen away from up here. This is just dry and cracked and brittle. Yeah, it's just coming apart. So I've got some old-fashioned with the red, black and green colours here. It's PVC cable, and I've also got a tag here because this set wasn't originally earthed, so I've wired up a earth tag here, and I'm going to attach it to the P clip, which is itself earthed to the which is part of the chassis. So I'm going to undo these. There's a bit of solder here, and those capacitors across the transformer, they are definitely going to be going. Right. One before I switch it on. There we go. And that is, you can feel it cracking inside. Right. So I don't know whether to take that capacitor off first actually. I think I'm going to leave it for now and come back and do it. So all I'm going to do is, and I've measured this up beforehand, is just wrap these around the tags. Now this is plastic wire, so it doesn't, you can't solder it for so long because the plastic or PVC, whatever it is, will start to melt. I should have done that first, shouldn't I, really? Right. One. Two. I'm just forming these into little hooks. And then squeezing them exactly the same as I would have done it in the factory, pretty much. that is not the best joint. This older wire sometimes doesn't take solder very well. It's sort of, it's not bare copper, it's actually tinned. That's better. It's a better joint. Right, and then that can go there under the P-clip, and what I'm going to do is undo that, put that on top of it, and then replace the nut. If I can get the nut back on. Okay. Done. Not done. Isn't really holding that, is it? It's ain't meant for a much thicker wire. Oh well, that'll do for testing. Right, on to the next bit. I might just take that off again and squeeze that little bit actually. That's meant for a thicker wire. Right, I've repaired this wire here. I've squeezed this P-clip down a little bit, and it now holds the mains wire very, very securely. And I've also made the earth wire longer, so that if any of these should pull off, you know, the live or the neutral, there's still the earth wire is going to be connected. That's going to be the last one to pull off if someone yanks the lead so hard that it pulls everything off. That's not going to happen. Now let's have a look at something else. Now, the first capacitor that I'd like to change, apart from the filter cans, is C32. Now this blocks DC coming up from the anode of V3. It blocks DC going on to the control grid of the output valve. If it leaks, i.e. if it puts DC onto the output valve, it's going to turn the output valve on harder, and it's going to make more current come through the output transformer, and it could destroy that and the mains transformer eventually. So that's pretty much one of the first things you change in any valve radio. Unfortunately, C32 is on that tag board, and it's just, where have I gone? Just here. C32 under. So it's underneath the tag board. So that's going to be my next challenge. Trying to get in there and remove that. Now, if I can just go up to the tag board a minute and we'll come out a little bit. Now the tag board has got 1, 2, 3 screws in it, but it's also held in by all this wiring, and I've just undone this screw here to see if I could, you know, pull it out a little bit, and it's absolutely solid. It won't move at all. So the only way I could get this board out is by undoing every single wire pretty much, or at least the top ones, and then folding it down and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can remove the capacitor from the front and just pull it out the back and feed the new one up through the back and then across. And that's going to take me some time to work out, and I don't think anyone would really want to see that being filmed. So I'll get on with that, and we'll come back when I've done those.